Greetings there, YouTube world. Mike Hauser here with another video blog. It's Christmas time, as you can see, in the Hauser house here, and I want to share something that was a big gift to me, and I'm hoping it'll be a gift to you. It's a podcast by Stanley called Gaining and Sustaining Momentum. I have it here on my beautiful iPhone 4S, which is the current version at the moment, and as a youth pastor, we all have to have the latest Apple devices. But anyways, they don't have this on the iTunes store anymore. It's a free MP3 that you can get. So I didn't pay for this. It's free, but it's not on there anymore. And I want to share this with a bunch of my ministry friends, and I can't. I guess I could email it to them directly, but that would just clog up their email, and that bothers people. So anyways, I thought I'd throw it on my YouTube channel here, and there's a possibility Stanley's people might like find this and like shut it down and say I'm not allowed to have this on, and I thought, hey, it's worth the risk. Like, I could add that to my resume, like Stanley shut me down for something, and that'd be fun. But anyways, I hope you enjoy this. There's two parts, 1 and 2, and this is the generic intro for both of them, so I hope you enjoy it. If you end up watching the second one, just fast forward all this bald guy stuff and get right to the good stuff. So hope you enjoy it. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Birthday, Happy Anniversary, whatever holiday you'd like to watch us on, be my guest. Enjoy.
Hello and welcome to the Andy Stanley Leadership Podcast, a conversation designed to help leaders go further faster. Today we're continuing our conversation about creating and sustaining organizational momentum. Andy, on our last podcast, you gave us 3 words that are essential when it comes to creating and sustaining momentum. You said new, improved, and improving.
Yeah, that's right. And, when it comes to creating momentum in our organizations, we have to do something new. New triggers momentum. As we said, tweaking something old may make us feel like we're being productive, but it doesn't result in momentum. And to sustain momentum, we have to be constantly improving.
Well, in today's clip, you talk about some of the pushbacks, especially in church world, to new, improved, and improving. Right. Let's listen, and then we'll come back and discuss them.
Now, here's the pushback in church world. I understand this. Significant improvement is expensive. But let me just say something, and you know this, you're leaders, but maybe you need to take what I say and let somebody else hear it if that'll help. And that's simply this. You are far better shutting down 5 mediocre programs to invest in one significantly improved program, because one significantly improved and changed program may create the momentum you need to fund the 5 mediocre programs later if you even decide to relaunch them. But dumping medium amounts of money into 5 mediocre programs will never, ever, ever create momentum. It's safe. It is not significant. And one of the great things about being a church planner is, we've been going about 15 years, and even in 15 years, we have shut down so many things that we started, and we invented them. We invented them, thought they were great, trained people, told other people to do them. Then about 8 years in, we went sideways energy, shut it down. It's much easier, I know, when you start your own deal. But why would you, your elders, your deacons, your leaders, why would we want to pour money into things that are mediocre if it means we are robbing resources from something that could really create momentum in our church? We don't want to do that. So somehow as a leader, we have to lead our leaders into understanding. Momentum is essential. Momentum is essential to penetrating a culture and to making a difference in our communities. It's absolutely essential because momentum is all about progress. So consequently, don't try something that's not a significant improvement. New triggers momentum, but improved is what allows momentum to be sustained. New, improved, improving. Warning. Even significant improvement has a shelf life, doesn't it? Even significant improvement has a shelf life. Now, you know this. I don't have to tell you this. In church world, we leave things on the shelf way too long. How many different versions of the iPod have there already been? But you look at the typical denominational churches especially, they look the way they've looked, right, since the 60s and the 70s. iPods don't. Why? Because people, and we're going to illustrate this in just a minute, people in the business world understand if something's not working, get rid of it. But in church world, and you know this, in church world, as long as we're able to pay the bills, it's just hard to get anybody to be willing to rock the boat with you. But again, it comes back down to what do we believe? And do we believe that Jesus really is the hope of the world and that people live forever somewhere? I do. You do. The people around you do. The people in your churches do. So why in the world would we settle for just okay? in light of what we have the opportunity to do. And because you're leaders, you're smart enough to figure out how to make a difference in your community, and you're smart enough to figure out how to create momentum if people will give you the resources and give you the permission that you need to quit doing some things that maybe you need to quit doing. Improving. Number one under improving. Momentum is sustained through, fill in the blank, continuous improvement. Momentum is sustained through continuous improvement. Now, in the marketplace, everybody understands this. It seems like everybody understands this but the church. Can you guys see this over here? Yeah, we're going over there. I just sent our Catalyst team to the grocery store to just buy some products. And I just want to try to illustrate this for you, okay? Crest toothpaste. Everybody knows what Crest toothpaste is. Check this out, okay? Here are 9 versions of Crest toothpaste. Now, why are there 9 versions of Crest toothpaste? Because the makers of Crest toothpaste understand this. If people have bought into our product, we want them to know we're not content just to make great toothpaste. They never need to leave our brand because we are continually trying to improve Crest toothpaste. If you want a different flavor, we got it. You want tartar control, we got it. Whitening expressions, vanilla, whitening expressions, herbal mint, whitening expressions, wintergreen, who cares? Whitening expressions, cinnamon, here's my favorite one. Whitening plus scope extreme. It's like they sit around and going, what else can we add? What else can we add? Now, why do they do this? Here's why. And this is all about perception. I mean, it's all toothpaste. It doesn't matter, really. But the perception is we want our customers to understand we are doing everything we possibly can to make this the very best it can be. Why? Because momentum is about new toothpaste. Never thought of it. Yeah, you put this on your teeth and makes your teeth clean. Woo, it's new, right? Improved, it's a whole lot better than baking powder. Hey, it is a whole lot better than baking powder. Improving, stick with Crest, because if there is a breakthrough in the world of toothpaste, trust us, we're going to be there first. New, improved, continuous improving.
Andy, you began by saying that the biggest pushback is that new costs too much.
Yeah, and new is often expensive. But the problem is, as long as cost is the only lens through which we evaluate an opportunity, most of us are never going to have the courage to move forward. At some point, we have to ask what's best for the organization. Yeah, it's going to cost a lot. And one of the things I love to talk to leaders about is, hey, but before you get caught up in how, let's focus on the what. And I think sometimes as soon as somebody introduces a new what, there are people in the room who immediately think how much, which is a how. And, that can kill some of the best ideas, not simply in church world, but in the marketplace as well. So before everybody freaks out over, how much is this going to cost, decide what's the best thing to do. And generally, great leaders can figure out where to find the money once they, are really laser focused on what needs to be done.
Wow, and we touched a little bit on this in January, but it's so important. We want to dig in a little more. You went so far as to say that an organization is better off cutting 4 or 5 mediocre programs to save money and start something new.
Yeah, and that's so interesting, Lane, because when I meet with church leaders, they generally have good ideas. Sometimes they have great ideas, and church leaders are generally pretty insightful when it comes to what's not working. But in terms of bringing what's not working to the table along with the good ideas, for some reason, they missed that step. And so the assumption is we have to continue funding things that are working okay and then go find extra money or new money in order to introduce things that we know would make a big difference. I was reading recently about Ford Motors, and they're in the process of reducing the number of models they carry. And in this article, it explained that part of the reason was it just costs so much to bring a new model to the marketplace that by reducing the numbers of models they're currently producing, it's going to create new money. It's found money. It may seem common sense when we talk about it within this context, but sometimes in organizational life, the conversation about how to, bring new life to an old product line or an old programming versus the conversation about how to find money or the energy or leadership for something new, they're two different conversations. But in organizational life, the two are always connected. And I think great leaders understand that everything is always on the table all the time for the sake of progress.
Well, it seems like in like you said, Ford or an industry, even anywhere in the marketplace, it's kind of easier when the bottom line is profit, right, to sort of weed out the good from the bad. But how do churches and nonprofits weed out the mediocre?
Yeah, this is trickier, and church world is tricky because there's so much emotional investment in programming. There's so much history. Generally speaking, in church world, programming isn't that large a chunk of the budget anyway. It's a lot of the fixed cost. So in terms of understanding this, I think churches have to step back and ask, what are we doing? What's our vision? What's our mission? Are these programs actually getting us where we want to go? Is this the best place to spend our money? And generally speaking, when you can get church leaders to step way back and answer the question, what's our vision? What do we want? What's our preferred future? What's our mission in this community? Now, let's be honest. Are these programs the best programs to get us there? Is this the best use of our money? And honest leaders oftentimes at that point, can kind of see through the fog and see, we like these programs. We've always done these programs. Is this the best approach? Is this the best strategy? Maybe not.
In the past, we actually sort of coined a phrase where we would talk about this. We would say we would think steps, not programs.
Yeah, think steps, not programs. That's huge for us because we ask the question, where do we want people to be? What do we want people to become? And what are the steps to get them from where they are to where we believe they need to be and where they want to be? And so we viewed all of our programming as a step in a very specific direction. And then we asked the question, is it an easy step? Is it an obvious step? Is it a strategic step? So when we look at our programming and when we help other churches evaluate programming, we ask that question, not how long have you been doing this, but is this a step? Does this go anywhere? Is it an easy step? Can people take it? Is it obvious? Do your people know that it exists? Is it strategic? Does it lead somewhere? And because of that, as I mentioned in the clip that we listened to earlier, we have eliminated so many things that we used to do, not because they weren't, quote, effective or not because people weren't attending, but because it dawned on this. This is no longer a step toward where we want people to be. So all of our programming is viewed through the lens of, is this a step and is this taking people where we want them to be?
And this results not only in a savings of money, it really helps us with volunteers as well.
Huge because, competent people want to know they're doing important things. And strategically minded people want to know that their volunteer hours are strategic. And as you know, even here we have some incredible people who stand out in the parking lots Sunday after Sunday after Sunday directing cars, not because they grew up always wanting to direct cars, but they understand that if we can get if a person can have a great experience in our parking lot, that sets them up for a great experience for the rest of the day. And so even the men and women in our parking crews understand what they're doing is strategic. This isn't simply volunteering. This is strategic. And we have cast that vision at every level of the organization.
And in the clip, you also gave us this warning. You said, even significant improvement has a shelf life. What do you mean by that?
Well, improved isn't enough because what's improved today isn't improved tomorrow. And in the marketplace, this is so obvious. Nobody keeps a product that's not selling on the shelves. In fact, and I know a bit about the book publishing industry. When you sell a book into a major retail chain, they're going to give it a tiny window. And if it doesn't sell, they box the books up and send them back to the publisher because we're not going to leave things on the shelf that don't move, that don't sell. In church world, programming has shelf life as well, but because we don't evaluate, I think, the way we need to evaluate, we run programs far longer than they should be, and then we resist the notion to make the changes, and then we eat up dollars unnecessarily, and then somebody comes along with an idea that would really create momentum, and we say we can't afford it. So I think if leaders just keep in the back of their mind, even my best idea has a shelf life, even the most breakthrough idea has a shelf life. Everything that's new and improved has a shelf life. Let's keep our eye on that, and let's be honest, even if we've fallen in love with it, even if our reputation hangs on it, even if we've made a name for ourselves around this idea or this product or this program, let's just remember everything has a shelf life, and let's look for the next thing, the next thing that's really that's an actual improvement.
I love what a lot of our ministry areas do, where sometimes it's just rebranding. Sometimes it's just putting a fresh face. With our middle school program just sort of went through that same thing of saying, I think we'd had the name for about 7 or 8 years, and it was like it needed to be freshened up.
Yep. And again, that's new artwork, that's new graphics, that's new T-shirts, and in our case, hundreds and hundreds of T-shirts. It was expensive, but it was so funny. Even though it was just a name change, it brought in some fresh ideas, a fresh look, and in some cases, even a fresh approach to what was happening in small group. So again, it was a bit of a branding thing, but it opened up the discussion in such a way that some things that maybe we had never even evaluated properly were evaluated in the process of rebranding that environment.
It's what you called in the clip continuous improvement, and you went on to say that continuous improvement requires systematic evaluation.
Yeah, in our world, because we work weekend to weekend to weekend, here comes Wednesday, here comes Sunday, it's a 7-day cycle, all of our programming. It's easy to slip into, in church world, evaluation by stories. Somebody liked it, so it must have been great. Somebody can't wait to come back, so it must have been great. But for there to be genuine, actual, ongoing improvement, there has to be systematic evaluation where you sit down with a team that does an event, sit down with a team that produced a weekend service and say, okay, let's really evaluate this. Let's go back to the storyboard and work our way through from introduction to transitions to everything. And I think evaluation needs to be as frequent as the event itself. And again, for someone in the marketplace that doesn't do events, it's going to look differently. But evaluation has to be built into the rhythm of the organization. It can't just be anecdotal. And because we're busy, sometimes we just don't build that into our meeting schedules, but it's extremely important, and it's absolutely necessary to identify as soon as possible what's not working, what has passed its shelf life, and what needs to be reevaluated.
Andy, as you said it, every time we have a program, we have an evaluation meeting. And those aren't really just sort of pats on the back meetings either.
No, and it's easy for it to become that. And what's interesting, as you know, and every leader knows, it's always easier to evaluate the person who's not in the room. It's easy to evaluate Frank because Frank's not here and we don't think he did that great of a job at whatever it was, or Susan or whatever. But when you're sitting in the room and it's your area or you're part of a production that's being evaluated, obviously we need to be polite. There's never an excuse for humiliating someone publicly. But to have unfiltered debate and to be able to look at somebody and say, well, I'm sure that made sense to you. That didn't make sense to the rest of us. Explain that. Or is that something we really need to repeat? And as the pastor, and in my case, the communicator, I have found that I have to start the evaluation of the message. No, it's sort of where angels dare not tread. It's like, wait a minute, he's preaching the word. He's speaking from the Bible. How do we evaluate that? But presentation style, there's a lot of things to evaluate. So sometimes I think the further up we are in the organization, we have to sometimes kick that off because people, they're going to be polite, and in some cases we sign the paycheck. But for there to be unfiltered debate, there has to be a permission giving within those conversations.
And you made the point that this unfiltered systematic evaluation is really probably most important in areas where we have momentum.
Yeah, because a momentum is deceiving. And again, in an organization or an industry where you're the leader in the industry or you're the biggest of whatever you do in town, simply being the biggest, the most profitable doesn't mean you're excellent. It may simply mean you're the only one in town or you got to town first. But in order to continue to be the leader, there has to be unfiltered evaluation. And again, you're exactly right. The tendency is to think, well, wow, we're the biggest, the best, we're the most well-known, we're the brand everybody's trying to buy, so why do we need to evaluate? But probably it's as or even more necessary, especially to stay on top.
And I love what you said in the clip where you said this commitment to unfiltered evaluation. It creates a certain perception in the minds of our people.
Yeah, it's very important for customers or congregants or whatever your field is, for them to feel like, what, you're paying attention to what's happening in your industry. I never need to look at another brand because if, again, as I said in the clip, if there's a breakthrough, I think my brand or my church or my synagogue, they're going to be all over this. I don't have to look around. And it is a bit perception, but if there really is a passion among leadership to have the best, to do the best, to be on the cutting edge of whatever it is, then it's not simply a perception. It's the reality that our R&D department or our desire to have better programming is a genuine pursuit. You know, it's interesting, you mentioned a while ago the transition we made in our middle school environment. We changed the name, we rebranded it, and it was so funny because at the time, I have 3 high school students, and 2 of them are leaders in middle school, and they didn't like the change. It was so funny. I was so excited that we're rethinking the whole thing, and they're like, I don't know why they're changing everything, you know. And so here's this younger generation, like, they're already stuck. I mean, here they are. They're so accustomed to what's always been done in church, and why are we changing it? And I'm thinking, wow, that sets in early in church world. So it was a great transition, a great rebrand. But again, there was pushback, even from a group that you would think would be all about change.
Right. But that perception you talked about, it really buys us some benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. And I was able to explain that to them. I'm saying, you know what, we know it's great. We know that you enjoyed it when you were a middle schooler. We want it to be even better. And by changing the name and rebranding, it gives us an opportunity and an excuse to make some things better.
Right. Well, Andy, as we kind of wrap up this discussion on momentum, are there just final thoughts you have for our listeners?
I think the bottom line, the takeaway from both of these discussions is simply those 3 words: new, improve, and improving. New, improved, and improving. I think if we can use that as the filter by which we evaluate products, programming, leadership, everything, new, improved, improving. Where can we introduce something new? Because new always triggers momentum. Is it really an improvement? If it's just a tweak, it's not going to create momentum, but is it really an improved product? And then how can we build into the rhythm of our organization evaluation that allows us to be constantly improving?
Andy, thanks so much for taking this time to talk with us today. For the months of February and March only, we have a free DVD offer for our Leadership Podcast listeners. Visit us online at northpointstore.org and choose one Andy Stanley DVD from the Leadership Essentials collection. Make sure you use the promo code LEADERSHIP at checkout. This special offer is limited to the first 500 customers, ending on March 27, 2011. Shipping charges will apply.